So for the Anderson Composite doors for this 16 Challenger, this prop spring, the spring that keeps the door propped, it's a little too tight. So I'm just going to cut off enough to where it'll stay in there. So probably to right about there. Cut right there. So it'll fit in there, but it won't fall out. So I can just cut one coil off, it looks like. So that'll stay in there, and then it won't be so strong when you go to close the door with the carbon fiber. And that's on the upper hinge. So on these Anderson Composite front doors, the only thing we had to do is two things. And that is making this spring shorter. And the way you do that is bring this spring closed. So you expose that spring. And this is just a GM tool, old school GM door spring tool. It fits up in there. So fit that into the spring. So like that. Wherever you can get it to go up in there. Into the spring like that. Tighten this up. That. Collapse the spring, pull it out. And then release it. And then we're going to cut this one a little short. So in order to decrease the tension on this spring for that door, because it's so much lighter, I've got to cut some of this off. And I'm going to cut it right here. That's all we need. You just add a little bit right there, take it off, and that releases a lot of the tension. So you can close the door easier and it doesn't bind and twist the carbon fiber. So I'm going to cut that now. So again, that's all I cut off with that little sliver right there. That's all it needs. And cut it at an angle so that's flat. So I've got the newly cut spring, and I'm going to install it back in there. That's it. That's all you need. Bring it back out so you can bolt your door up. And we're good to go. This is the other thing I needed to do to this Anderson composite door. here on the door handle. I had to glue a small piece of metal to this where they cut the hole for the handle bezel. So that hole was not in the right place, so I had to move it considerably, and by that time the hole was too big. So I just cut this piece of metal, 8115, glued it in. It's only, I think, 1/4 of an inch thick, wide, just regular old sheet metal. And then glue that into that area, and then take your bezel, the handle bezel, and line it up centered here. Just center it in that opening, and then mark your hole and put a hole right here in the metal, as high up on that piece of metal as you can get. Try to get the hole high on that piece of metal so this bracket comes up just a little bit taller. I glued the piece of metal here on the door, and now I'm going to drill that hole for the handle bezel. It. Be sure it's centered in that hole, and make your mark where you want to drill it. Drill towards the top without, of course, going over, but drill towards the top of that piece of metal. Some really crude tools here, but take your screw out of the handle bezel and screw it in right there. And it gives you all the strength you need in order to hold that bezel so the handle doesn't wobble around on the outside. This is how the handle fits on the outside. Again, it's good and sturdy now that that bracket is in there. It doesn't move around back and forth. I wanted to apologize for the mess on the outside. I'm trying to leave that wrap on there so it doesn't scratch the carbon fiber, because we will eventually be clear coating the doors and the deck lid and the roof. So I wanted to show you here, because of cutting that spring. Now this area right here doesn't bend. It doesn't bend in now that when we close the door. So I'm closing the door, and see that area doesn't push in anymore. And all it took was that small sliver, taking that small sliver of coil out of it. That's all it took. So tomorrow, our video is going to be on clear coating the roof panel. Happy trails.